Welcome back to Voice Global. I'm your host, Pete Erickson. And I have to say, this interview series has been fantastic for me because I'm learning so much more about the industries that touch everything voice and conversational design. One of those industries is certainly the media space, the entertainment space, the news space. And our next guest has a front row seat on that transformation that's happening right now. He has a deep history when it comes to the convergence of media and human beings and entertainment. Background includes Amazon Studios, PlayStation, Audible as chief product officer, and now he is the CEO at TuneIn. I'm going to let him introduce everything that TuneIn is all about, but I'm thrilled to welcome to our stage here at Voice Global, Rich Stern, CEO of TuneIn. Rich, how you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Pete.
Well, thanks for joining us. And when we did our prep call, it was really illuminating for me. We talk a lot about how voice is transforming industries, but really the depths with which conversational design and voice is transforming industry starts to get deeper and deeper and deeper when you start to look at the various industries um, out there. Media and entertainment is certainly one of them, and TuneIn is certainly one of the companies that is on the forefront. Help our viewers understand, what TuneIn, who TuneIn is.
Yeah. TuneIn is a global platform for live audio, and for us, the most emblematic kind of audio that gets delivered live is radio and broadcast audio. So we have over 100,000 broadcast streams serving every country in the world, over 80 million listeners on the platform today. And that live audio experience, especially as we're coming out of this period of COVID where so many people were at home and felt disconnected, is more powerful than ever. And it's what's driving our business today.
So you said 100,000 broadcast streams, 80 million listeners. That the amount of content it's almost dizzying in a way. How is voice and how is conversational design impacting the way you think about this from a broadcast perspective?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, about 30% of our listening is music based content, but 70% is what I would call conversational audio, which means it's everything from news and sports talk to political conversation to podcasts. And that, especially at a time when people are looking to reconnect to authentic conversation, they're looking to understand the world better. The appetite for it continues to grow. And you sort of add to that the fact that many of us were, sort of isolated and in our homes, and we were connecting to this kind of content via CE devices like Amazon Alexa or Google Home or Sonos. It starts to make sense. It serves a very fundamental human need. But everything starts with great conversation. That's what drives where our customers want to listen to, and that just so happens to be what broadcasters are great at. And they drive these incredible conversations about things happening at the national level, things happening at the local level every single day, and it's new every single day. And there's a reason to listen. And so that's very core to our business, and it's been exciting to see it be rediscovered and re-embraced over the course of this year with such fervor and excitement from our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've all gone through this together, and I think that the way that we consume content, the kind of content we consume, has changed, and and I think how we're interacting with that content. I think that's a key aspect of like the voice tech industry is that interactivity. And how do you see interactivity with content, shaping this industry?
Yeah, well, I think we're still in the early days of audio, even though it's burgeoning and it's exciting and more people are listening than ever. It still feels like the early innings. When we compare it to other mediums like video or like text on the internet. So there's a
Mhm.
lot to build. There's a lot to discover. There's a lot to innovate. But a natural sort of human instinct when you're listening to conversational audio is you want to interact with it. You want to join the conversation, and voice technologies give us a tremendous capability in that regard. You marry to it the fact that so much listening is happening on connected devices that have voice assistant capabilities. And I think there's lots and lots of room to explore and to create together. But that fundamental human instinct of, oh, I want to interact, I want to join the conversation, I think should propel a lot of our thinking and creates a lot of opportunity for everybody in this ecosystem.
As a platform, where are your priorities from a technological standpoint? What is TuneIn working on that is core to kind of your mission versus other areas where you may go find the best partners out there to support what it is you're doing? What's kind of at the nucleus from your standpoint from a technology?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first, part of our mission as we sort of reinvent radio for a connected world is to aggregate content. We want to have a platform that has everything a customer wants to listen to in one space. And so building a global platform that works as well as radio, meaning it's always on, it's always available, it's always live, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is where we spend a lot of time, and that infrastructure is very important. But then the next step, from our partner standpoint is, okay, well, what's the business model? We've got a lot of people listening. We have them connected in the TuneIn app and the TuneIn website, and over 200 different types of devices that are connected. But how do we remunerate? And so we also invest in monetization mechanisms, everything from in-stream audio, pre-roll audio, for the free version of our products, to a premium subscription service that's commercial free, and that allows customers to directly subscribe and gives us the opportunity to monetize on a monthly basis in that way. And then sort of the third leg of the stool for us is pushing into new devices and new ways of distributing this content in ways that sort of complement and integrate into our customers' lives. So we're spending a lot of time working with CE device partners like Amazon or like Google, like Sonos, but also emerging auto manufacturers like Tesla, where we basically replace the radio in the vehicle, and we're able to bring this content, via the TuneIn app. That increasingly is going to become a very important part of the ecosystem we're trying to build, but also like how our customers want to connect with this content. I love radio and I love the content, but the technology of AM/FM broadcast has seen its day. Today, we connect to vehicles via apps and 4 and 5G connectivity. And a platform like TuneIn is in a great position to handle that plumbing and work with auto manufacturers and their partners to ensure that the content can come through loud and clear, and the technology is well tended to. And so that's another area that we're particularly focused in at this point.
Well, I will share with our viewers out there. This is not maybe it is a shameless plug, but I am a TuneIn subscriber, and I really love the product.
Well, thank you.
One of the reasons I love the product is on that premium service, you get no ads, and that's just that's just genius. I think I'm the type of consumers that I will pay my way out of ads. But I have to say it's a great service. It's ubiquitous for us as well. We can get it on our phones, in our homes, in our cars. And it is really, really compelling to see the way radio is changing. Our car does have a radio, but we don't use a radio anymore. My kids are 9 and 10. They're an on-demand, digital on-demand. Any song they want, they can get whenever they want it. They don't know that we had to wait for our song to come on the radio when we were kids, and then we would record it, the scratchy audio over the radio.
Absolutely. I mean, it's come a long way. I mean, my sense though is, what we had at one point, for radio as an industry was ubiquity. There was an AM/FM radio almost everywhere you were in your daily life.
Right.
And that's changed. Most people, if they did sort of a self-assessment, they would say, either don't have a radio anymore, or the last one is in my car. And very quickly, that's going to turn into an infotainment system, not necessarily a radio. So, thinking about how we recreate that ubiquity digitally for our broadcasters. So I think the appetite for the content is as big as it's ever been. It just so happens that that distribution mechanism has changed. And then to your point, take a business model which has largely been ad driven around radio because that was all that was available, and start to help the industry see a path to alternative forms of monetization, which could be even bigger for them, but also much, much more well received from a customer standpoint. That's part of our mission, and again,
Yeah.
we spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I think there's lots of opportunity to create and invent on behalf of our partners and our customers who want a better experience too.
So let's talk about that a little bit. I think the interesting thing is advertising. Certainly, I mean,
Yeah.
the ad models that we're seeing in this industry is that advertising is about to go through a massive transformation. That transformation is around the interactivity, being able to actually talk to your ads and have conversations and find out more information. So you actually kind of dive into the ad, if you will, and start to experience that product and find out information or get offers. Um, I wonder if you kind of agree with that assessment, just in terms of like where advertising is. And it seems to me that that's kind of the holy grail here is you now actually can actually start talking to individual listeners out there, which to me, just if I'm an advertiser, it seems like a pretty cool, pretty cool evolution in this space.
Oh, I think you're 100% right. I mean, and there's three kind of key drivers that get us very excited. One is, for the first time in the history of broadcast, through machine learning and through content analytics, we have context. We know what the customer is listening to, and not just the station or the programmer, but like what were they talking about 30 seconds before the ad started, and what are they talking about afterwards, so we can start to make advertising that's more contextual and more appropriate, and less intrusive in the listening experience. The second point is we've got great addressability. The broadcast industry for a long time was a one-way medium where they broadcast out into the world and they didn't know who was listening. They had to kind of work with third parties like Nielsen and Arbitron and others to sort of assess their audience and understand
Right.
who they were. We can understand that at a one-to-one level now. And then the third leg of the stool, to your point, is interactivity. So if you have context and you know who you're talking to, you can allow them to interact with brands. You can allow them to interact and purchase, items that they're hearing about in real time. And so, all of that together, takes audio from a place where, largely I think marketers said, well, it's great for brand awareness, it's great for frequency, but I don't really know if it's actionable. I don't really know whether it delivers, real outcomes for me, and how to track that to, a medium that can compete with video, that can compete with display, and that, we can actually understand on a very detailed basis its performance caliber. And I think that gets very exciting for everybody. It gets exciting for the customer because they start getting ads that are more appropriate, more contextual, and more engaging for them, and less disturbing in the content consumption experience. And it helps marketers tremendously because they can actually engage their audience in a way that's meaningful. And that drives, I think, hopefully a lot of value for the ecosystem of partners that we're creating around the platform. So I think it's a very exciting time. Like, I don't think we've ever been at this moment before in audio. But the thing I'm very sure about is, over the next 5 years or so, the days of radio, the way that we knew them, not only will they be distant memories, people won't just be laughing at, oh God, you guys used to use tapes and record off the radio,
Right.
but they're going to say, oh, you never talked to an ad before?
Right.
That happens all the time.
Yes.
That's how it's designed now.
That's how it
So
works.
it's going to be a pretty exciting learning curve to go up, but I think it's going to be a tremendous experience for everybody involved. Like, I think it's going to get so much better. Like carriage to automobile better,
Yeah.
in terms of the step that's about to happen in the industry.
Well, I think we really feel, I mean, we, us that are the geeks that are part of the voice tech industry and have been, steeped in it now for, 5+ years. We all can see it and feel it, but I think what's exciting is you're starting to see it out in the wild. You're starting to
Yeah.
see examples. The other area I'd love to talk about a little bit is discoverability, when it comes to podcast, because I think that, podcasting is it's the behemoth medium now. If you look at, the the amount that other platforms are spending on talent, I don't need to name names, but I mean, it's an incredible platform. But uh, I still see so much opportunity from a discoverability standpoint. I mean, I just want to be able to say, like, I'm a cosmologist. I follow Sean Carroll, who I love what he does, but I'd love to say, hey, what podcast has Sean been on recently, where he talks about Fermi's paradox? Like, I,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, boom! It's like I get the information back. Oh, he most recently appeared on this podcast, and this is here's the conversation. Where do
Yeah.
you think we are from a discoverability standpoint when it comes to podcast?
Well, with regard to pods, with as exciting and as big as the markets become, if it's a baseball game, we're not even out of the first inning yet,
Oh,
which is, I
interesting.
think, also what makes it so exciting. And one
I
of
love
the
that.
one of the key thresholds, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we have to cross over is figuring out how to get to the good stuff. And the good stuff is different for everybody. Everyone has different tastes, but there is so much content that's being produced right now. And even on visual devices, going on the web, going to an app store, it's still very hard to find the content that's appropriate for you. A lot of people end up falling back on top 10 lists and whatnot.
Yeah.
But now imagine devices that don't have screens, which is really what we talk about when we talk about voice assistants
Hmm.
and sort of the ubiquity of audio.
Right.
Discovery has to happen in a conversational way. And
Yeah.
it needs to be driven by, as I said before, context. What were you listening to? What have you listened to before? It needs to take into account identity. I know who you are, largely by your voice, especially if you're in a home, because mom's different than dad's
Hmm.
different than kids.
Hmm.
Everybody has different tastes in what they're looking for. And then an interactive voice discovery experience that feels conversational and feels consultative. So you can find the content that really is going to be wonderful and that's going to be engaging. And again, if I said to you that we're not even through the first inning yet, what I described is probably just the second inning.
Right.
And then on the other side of that, you can start thinking about how to feed back to creators and helping them target better and make better podcasts. I mean, imagine
Right.
a world where you sort of knew, I'm not just going to make this podcast and hope that it gets discovered, but you can say, I know who my audience is and I
Hmm.
know what they're waiting for and I'm
Hmm.
ready to connect with them. And they've connected
Hmm.
to my content before and they'll connect it again.
Right.
I think that's the power of this world that we're starting to create. But it's very early days. And I think there's lots of opportunity for invention. I wouldn't let anybody who's interested in podcasting or interested in audio right now be dissuaded by the M&A or the big acquisitions that happen. Those
Right.
things happen all the time in frothy
Right.
markets.
Right. Right. Right.
The future of this is still being built, and there's great opportunity at all levels of the customer experience to invent. So I think the people that are ultimately going to be the podcasting moguls of the future, we haven't met them yet because the
Yes, I
future
love
is
that.
going to be very different than it is today.
I love that. It's funny. Um, when you talk about, going from um, where we are, we're, really becoming trying to win the space. I was thinking about Netflix, and Netflix they had to invent everything from the ground up, right? So they became an
Yep.
analytics company. They were streaming other people's content, but because they spent so much and built up all this analytical capability, they knew exactly what people wanted. So then they started Netflix Studios, and voila, um, that was a little bit of the keys to the kingdom, and that's sort of a playbook for where I think audio is going to be going.
Yeah.
And that is that if you do understand your audience, then you can create for that audience. And I think you're right. I think about we went through the mobile revolution, and I think where the voice tech industry is probably about like equal with the Instagram acquisition. I've said this a few times, but it's kind of like that happened, I think 2013 or so, and it was $1 billion and it was a big deal, right? But if you look at what's happened since then, I mean, that's really when the market was really made. And so a lot of people might have felt like that was, oh my God, that what a huge thing, like the market's evolved and it's arrived. But no, it was really just getting going at that time.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit on something really uh, profound, which is to say, all of these industries are driven by the creative economies. that belie them. So, podcasting, television, film, video games, ultimately it comes down to the creators. And, if you wonder why over the last few years we've seen a golden age in gaming and we've seen a golden age in television and in video, a lot of that has to do with the rapid feedback loops and the availability of data going into the hands of creators about the audiences that they're serving. If we
Mm,
look at television and its history, again, a broadcast medium, not a whole lot of knowledge about the families that were consuming it, other than like very high level Nielsen data and dials and things like that. Now we can have a one-to-one relationship with our viewers, and it's not surprising, when you describe Netflix, that there seems to be a relationship with, as that understanding of the audience grew, so did the quality of the content,
right.
and this golden age was emerged. And that model of understanding your audience has continued to sort of um, leak out into the industry. And the same thing is true with games. I mean, I think for a long time, games were a fire and forget industry. But I look back, and I'm biased, so I'll give a shout out
A
to my
little
friends at PlayStation.
PlayStation
You
background
know,
there.
they have learned to be incredibly responsible to their audience, and incredibly thoughtful about how they research and how they listen. And game developers and folks that are part of their studios, listen very attentively to their audiences. And games that are getting released are even being re-evolved based on that feedback, so they can find new life with the audiences that they serve. And so I think broadcast and radio, and also pods for that matter, they've suffered in their early days. I should say radio has, through the history of the industry, but pods in their early days have suffered from this information asymmetry. Creators have been somewhat disconnected from the data that would inform them about their audiences and what they like and what
Mm,
they don't like.
mhm.
And what's exciting is that those walls are starting to come down.
Interesting.
And platforms like TuneIn can be part of the solution, not the only solution,
Right.
but that data benefits us all, because fundamentally it helps us make better content, and it's about the content at the end of the day. And I think Netflix, not that I've ever worked there, but I admire them and I'm a customer of theirs. They were one of the first in mainstream media to point to this data as being very precious, not because they want to market to you, but because
Right.
they want to make better product at the end of the day. And that makes a whole lot of sense to me. And I think every industry that starts to intersect with customer data in that way, the result typically is better product and a better experience for their customers.
Andy Glover at Netflix was head of insight engineering at one time. He gave a talk at an event of ours, and it was just so illuminating because he said, we at Netflix, we do not try to push out content that has a broad appeal. We actually, if we push out a show and the audience is too broad, we've not been successful.
Yeah.
We actually want to create content that has a very narrow appeal. And I found that so fascinating because that was such a different way than the traditional thinking of marketing, right? You want to push out a product that has a real broad appeal and is widely consumed. And they flipped the script. I thought that was fascinating as well. And it really aligns with what you were saying, Rich, about now we have the ability to actually interact on a one-to-one basis with our listeners out there.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. And if you think about it, you know, what else could you do in broadcast but try to get to the lowest common denominator, and try to create a tent that everybody could get into? I mean, you and I are old enough to remember the old Johnny Carson show when
Mhm.
40 million people a night would tune in because that
Right.
was what was on,
That's
and it
what was
had to
on.
be something that was available for everybody. But I think the flip side is that it doesn't democratize the media.
Right.
It makes it very, very watered down. It makes it very generic. And over time, I think our tastes have gotten to a place where we expect more. I
Yeah.
mean, we're not happy with the lowest common denominator or the Wonder Bread. Like,
Yeah.
we want the nuance. We want something that's much more catered to us. And behind what Andy's saying is sort of a truth that when you can start creating content, use data in that way, and start targeting your audience and creating content, you've democratized the medium, because
Right.
everyone can participate now.
Right.
Everyone can find something that feels true and authentic for them. And that's exciting. And by the way, I think that's been a big part of the joy of podcasting, is the diversity of voices and topics that have emerged from the medium. not because anyone is trying to, achieve sort of mass market dominance, but because the unit economics of the medium allow us to go very deep and explore and serve smaller audiences, and tell stories that otherwise wouldn't be economically viable in other mediums. And I think data and technology will continue to enable that kind of creativity. And I'm thankful for it. I mean, it's what makes great content.
Smaller, more valuable audiences. I mean, that's music to a marketer's ears. Um, well, Rich, where do you think this is headed? In the next, maybe just with the short time horizon here, is interactive ads going to be, going to start? Are we going to start to see those on the market here in the next year to 2 years?
So, my sense is first and foremost, you're going to see a lot of brand marketers and marketing experiences built around audio, simply because it's a new medium. People haven't gone ear blind yet. And the human voice, unlike our visual acuities, it hits people. It activates your empathy centers. It gets you to engage, and that's catnip for brand marketers, and they should
Right.
lean into that. That's a great opportunity. I think over the next year and 2 years, we're going to see a lot of experimentation around interactivity with voice. It'll start very simply.
Hmm.
It'll like in many ways be somewhat pattern matching to what people know about banner ads and other kind of display
Hmm.
advertising. And I think on the other side of that, 2 years out from there, people will start to embrace the more conversational aspects of it.
Right.
And there are certain environments where that's going to be really, really powerful. Like, for instance, in the car, where you can't look at a screen and you don't want to distract the listener, but they
Right.
may want to have a conversation with a brand.
Right.
And they may want to learn more about it. And it could be everything from, oh, that Starbucks piece was great. I really do want to get a cup of coffee.
Hmm.
Navigate me there right now. And oh, there's a discount waiting for me when I get there. Or it might be, I'm in the car for another 20 minutes and I'm shopping for a new car. Subaru is going to go ahead and give me an audio tour of the new Legacy. That's
Right.
great.
Right.
And I think that what's exciting for us as technologists is we get to invent all this.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to really stretch our creativity, to take this content, which we know people love, and take all this new knowledge that we're starting to acquire, and hopefully build experiences that not only are delightful to customers, but through that delight are highly effective for our marketing partners. And I think authenticity is key. The human voice and the audio medium is nothing if not about that connection and about that authenticity. And so if we can kind of, stand on lessons from the past and say, let's hold on to that. That's what makes this special. I think that there's going to be some incredible experiences, but it'll probably be sort of that kind of, crawl, walk, run, as the technology and the creativity of many of the software developers and engineers that are on in the audience today and listening to us, start to ramp up and explore.
Well, it's exciting times. You've certainly given us a lot to think about with regards to this market, a lot of knowledge. I'm really excited to see, where this all goes, and I hope you'll come back on future episodes of either Voice Summit or Voice Global, or possibly our Voice Talks program. Um, but before I go, Rich, I want to give you an opportunity to share with this audience, who are a bunch of really bright designers and developers and product leaders from across the voice tech industry. Where is TuneIn headquartered? Are there jobs available? Where would folks go to find out more about the company?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're like many companies. We've been working virtually over COVID, but hopefully after Labor Day, we'll be returning to our offices in San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York. We're absolutely hiring, so please come in and check out our open roles. But if any of the things that we've been talking about today, any of the world that we're trying to build sounds interesting to you, we'd welcome you to come and give TuneIn your time. We're going to have a lot of fun over the next couple of years.
Yeah, thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Also, the partnerships that you're looking to build. Certainly, it's an exciting time. TuneIn's a leading company. I love being a customer, and it's so great to
Thank you
talk
for
with
that.
you, Rich. You've got such a deep background in this space, and any chance we have an opportunity to share that knowledge, we will take it. So for now, thanks for spending time with us here at Voice Global, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.